This is a guide to making effective notes. The benefits of having a set of notes are wide and varied. These are just some of them. This note-making checklist can be used from the start of your note-making process so that you get into good habits from the beginning. You should keep them as brief and simple as possible so that they are easy to look at a later date. Try to have loose lined paper so that your notes can be organised in a folder or grouped together into different topics at a later date. You should write in your own words as much as you can. This will help your understanding as you go along. Leave spaces in as many places as you can so that notes can be added as you review them later. Liven up your notes using colour, images, symbols and boxes to section off key details. Use abbreviations wherever you can to speed up the process. Remember that note making is not the same as note taking. You are not in a meeting where you jot down everything like a robot. You are learning. It's different. These are some abbreviations that can be used whilst taking notes. You could create your own system in addition or instead of this one. Here are some further abbreviations. Shapes are useful in notes to section off ideas and group elements together. So by putting a star next to different elements, it would mean that they had connections or were linked in some way. So to make effective notes, you could use the listen strategy. So to begin with, you should lead and prepare as much as you can ahead of time by reading around the topic that you're about to be taught about. During the lecture, you should aim to identify the main points or ideas. Within 24 hours of a lecture, you should summarise the lecture in your own words. And then you should talk as much as you can about the ideas raised, questions you may have, and your thoughts on the subject. Try to talk to a range of people, so speak to your lecturer and talk to your colleagues. End the process by reviewing gaps in knowledge and continue to ensure that you note down keywords, phrases or points. What follows now are a range of different methods for recording notes and also formalising the note-making process. These are the 5 R's for making notes, and they are to record the notes, reduce them by summarising, reflect on them to identify any missing material, review them, and review those gaps that have been identified and find the necessary information, and then recite any details that you may need to memorise. A different formalising process is the SQ3R process. Now this process is for note making in relation to reading on the whole. So step 1 for this would be to survey, and this is to quickly look at, in about 60 seconds, what you have in front of you, taking in the cover, chapters and contents. Step 2 is then to question before reading. So what is your aim for doing this reading? Having that clear aim in mind can help the reading process further. What do you want to find out? What are you hoping to find out from doing this reading? Step 3 is the actual process of reading. Do this quite quickly to absorb the main ideas as quickly as possible. Perhaps read 2 or 3 times, and this is much more efficient than reading one time very slowly and missing things and then having to go back. Don't make notes at this stage, just underline or highlight any of the relevant information. Step 4 is after reading, and This is where you recall information. So you jot down what you've learned very quickly and interpret the information that you've just absorbed. Step 5 is to review and evaluate the notes that you've just made. In light of this review, is there anything that could be added? And at this point, you can go back to quickly read again and identify anything further. So ways in which you can make notes are wide and varied, and what follows are a number of different strategies. The first one is quite a formal process, which is the Cornell method, and it's quite a simple way of structuring notes in a very ordered manner, with your main ideas, further details, and then a summary at the bottom. Another way, again, is an even simpler way of making notes, and this will probably reflect the format of a lecture or a lesson, which is that you'll have a main subject, and then that subject will be broken into main ideas with subpoints and further information. This is the T-note method and can be used for more science-based subjects that involve a lot of factual data. So this is a table where you can include terms and definitions, equations, formulas and examples, evidence, and theories with proof. This is an example of some notes that have been reviewed, ordered and numbered. Connections have been made and extra details have also been added, with arrows and colours and numbers being used to organise. This is a mind map for organising information, and for the more creative or visual learners this can work really well. They are a much more visual way of making notes, and it may suit some of you. If you want more information, then this YouTube link is a link to how to make a mind map effectively. Other active reading strategies you can use are sticky notes. These can be used to note down key points as you go, and then moving them around after you're reading, and perhaps placing them in order of importance, or grouping them together in terms of topic. A glossary is a really important tool. This can be used to note down key terms and then examples of their use. Using an address book is a really good idea for this because it's already in alphabetical order. As mentioned before, you should try and prepare in advance of reading, creating a table of things you want to know and then leaving room for the responses as they are gained from your reading is a good way to do it. Thinking in advance also of things that you already know, so that you can discard things that come up repeatedly, things you want to know, and then also a column for things that you've learnt so that you can add it after your reading. The alphabet technique is a fun way of note making towards the end of a topic, as you can try and think of a keyword gained from your reading relating to your topic for each letter of the alphabet. Depending on your topic, this can often be quite challenging. You could just use a simple spider diagram to make notes whilst reading or listening. Using shapes to organise your information can be really useful, and if you're creative, then files and folder shapes can be a great representation of how something may ordinarily be ordered. Venn diagrams can be used when studying more than one text to consider comparisons. This is useful for looking at theoretical perspectives on an issue. As we've seen already, pre-reading tasks can be useful for identifying how you want to proceed with your writing. A few copies of this kind of grid could be printed out and added to your study folder so that you can formally record your aims for reading a specific text as well as noting what you learned from it. So this particular grid gets you to focus on kind of reading the title and looking at the contents page before starting, flipping through the pages to see what you can gain initially, then asking you to make connections to what you already know and to other things you have read. We have considered already through writing a glossary the importance of recording key vocabulary in some way. These kinds of grids can be used for that purpose and can be even more useful if done on index cards to use at a later date for revision or for reference reasons. Questions before, during and after reading are important when considering note making, particularly for new topics. This dice with key questions can really help the process and make it much more active. Finally, when reading fiction, considering the visual impressions you get at different stages of the text can be a valuable experience. If you're on a creative writing course or an English literature course, these strategies can be particularly helpful. Drawing images as you read, or just noting down keywords that come to mind as you're reading, can really help to interpret characters' thoughts and feelings at different stages of the novel. So that was your comprehensive guide to effective note making and reading techniques. I hope that you'll find some of it useful.